Good morning, my fellow Americans, as the great Paul Harvey used to say. Remember him back in the day? I got to tell you, I have been following news or talking about news in a public setting for a long, long time. I don't think I've ever seen people crash out as hard as they are right now over news. And it's sad, but revealing at the same time, because they're crashing out and they don't know what to do because it's good news. And of course, the major story of the world this week, probably this year, maybe this decade, is the peace deal in the Middle East. Hostages getting released, all the good news coming from that. So you would think people of all levels everywhere would be celebrating this. All levels. That would mean, the disgusting politicians we always have to talk about, idiotic celebrities, but normal people too in your everyday lives. Well, that's not the case because they've been so deranged and they've been so misguided by this so-called free press we're supposed to have that they don't know what to do when the good news actually comes. And it's really amazing to see. I don't know where they're going to go from here, but you're starting to see exactly how this is affecting them. Case in point, for the first time, you probably didn't pay attention to this like I do, but I always look to see this is how twisted I am. I look to see what protests are happening in major cities and what's going on. You get a feel for what the news cycle is going to be like. See, I go through this crap so you don't have to, and then I kind of filter it all out. For the first time in literally years last night, there were hardly any, or at least they weren't covering them, there were hardly any Free Palestine protests in major cities throughout the country last night. Now, why is that? Because what the hell are they going to protest against? This is a bad time to be in the paid protester business, my friends, because what do they have now? Where do they go? What we've seen now for years. 2 straight years, because that was the new crisis, right? That was the new Free Palestine, and they terrorized Jewish kids on Ivy League and other campuses, and they shut down federal office buildings, and they stormed courthouses, and they went. Well, you've got a potential of a Free Palestine. What do they do? Like, what do the paid protesters do? They had meetings last night, and they get together in back rooms, and they decide what the next crisis is that they can disrupt the country over. It's absolutely amazing to see. And the other amazing thing to see is, and this is something to laugh at, and I know it's like not the most fun stuff in the world to talk about, but at least we have celebrities to laugh at still, because of all people, all the celebrities, all the awful takes we've seen over the years, I think we found the worst one of all time. The worst celebrity take on President Trump of all time was delivered on the day of the peace deal by Martin Sheen. I don't know if you saw this or I don't know if you heard this, but it is the worst. And the timing of it is probably most important here, but we'll get to that as well. Obviously, it's kind of like this always happens too as far as news cycles go. It's always a major, major, major impact story that affects everything. And then not much else to talk about. But there's a lot to dig into here. And if a lot of this stuff bothers you, I have an overriding message for you today. People and how they react to this kind of stuff. I wouldn't worry about it because we're getting a real sense now for who is the most deranged. There's a specific demographic, and it's going to sound like I'm mean, but there's a specific demographic and a certain type of person that is the most twisted and the most just bent about the peace deal, and they don't know how to handle it. And we'll get to that as well. But in the meantime, thanks for being here. It's supposed to be a quick intro. I started blabbing on for like 2 minutes. I'm sorry, 4 minutes. Thanks for finding Wicked Radio on the live stream and the replay on the podcast, wherever you like to get them. All channels right now, wherever you're watching, and also the audio-only podcast, wherever you like to get that as well. Let's get right to it. First and foremost, President Trump is back in the States. I've said this many times before. I don't know if the guy sleeps. I have no idea. We've all observed this. He's basically an octogenarian that does not sleep. I am 20 to 25 years younger than this guy, and there's no possible way I could keep up with that energy. And I have a lot of energy, I can tell you that. I don't think a lot of us could. It's absolutely amazing. So he flies over, negotiates the tail end of the peace deal, goes to the Middle East. He's in Israel. We all saw that coverage. But then he went to the summit that happened in Egypt, where that happened, and then he went to another meeting there, and he did all the interviews, wasn't sleeping on Air Force One, reportedly, and then flies home. And what is he going to do today? Well, first and foremost, I hope he gets a little bit of rest, but also, there's a very important ceremony, I don't know if you heard about today, at 4 p.m., they're always a little late, but at 4 p.m. at the White House, this is a special day. Charlie Kirk will receive posthumously, of course, and unfortunately, the Medal of Freedom. This is no surprise to anybody, but today is the day it's actually going to happen. A few weeks back, actually on September 11th, on the memorial, President Trump announced it would happen. Just as a refresher, this is him from a few weeks ago, announcing that Charlie would get this honor.
Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd.
It's going to be a big crowd, and the date of the service is today, and it would have been Charlie Kirk's 32nd birthday. He didn't make it to 32. My God. And as sad as the entire story is, and we all know about it, I got a feeling this one's going to be a little bit different because of what we're coming off of here, with the hostages getting released, with a peace deal, with real hope, a real renewed sense of world hope because of this leadership. I think it's going to have, it's not a sense of closure because it's still horrifying, but going to be a sense of optimism, maybe. Maybe. We'll see, but that's going to happen. But again, it's another event the day after the trip that President Trump just went through. I love him or hate him. I don't know how that guy has that much energy, but it's kind of amazing. Speaking of peace deals, well, this should surprise nobody, but it took about 24 hours, but they're trying to steal credit for the peace deal. Did you see Tony Blinken and Biden trying to take credit for this thing? Let me bring this up. The best summation of it came from the New York Post if I can get through the ads. In a lengthy post on X, I don't know whether you follow him or not, Blinken outlined how Trump was able to secure the peace agreement, noting that Arab states and Turkey had said enough to Hamas. It showed that Iran-backed groups were working with, the peace deal that the Biden administration had already lined up. He wrapped up the statement by saying, "It's good that President Trump adopted and built on the plan that the Biden administration developed after months of discussion with Arab partners." You're actually trying to take credit, steal peace credit from this. You know the deal. That wouldn't have gotten done with them. It would have gotten worse. There would have been more hundreds of thousands of people killed. It would have gone on and raged on forever and ever and ever. And in fact, I actually agree with this, and this is my take on this. I don't think that action would have even taken from Hamas, and those hostages would have been taken if anybody was in the White House at the time. That's my take. But it happened under their watch, and they're trying to take credit for it. This was unbelievable. This was when President Trump was heading to Israel to speak before them and to see personally the hostages getting released. And it was, once again, young Peter Doocy asking the question. This is Trump's actual reaction to Biden administration officials trying to take credit for the peace
deal. And they were in places that you don't want to know about. Deep.
Some of the top Biden administration folks who were there, like Antony Blinken, seem to want some credit for the peace deal. Blinken says it's good that President Trump adopted and built on the plan that the Biden administration developed. What do you think about that?
Everybody knows it's a joke. Look, they did such a bad job. This should have never happened. This was
and he's right about that, by the way. The most people, you'll find even the most deranged, twisted people in your life will say that's probably not true, if they're even willing to admit it. But they're not the only ones now. Now it's starting. Now you have a couple of days in this, and you've got a corrupt mainstream media that's trying to figure out how to process this. Well, we can't give Trump too much credit. Everybody figured out it's ridiculous to say that it was Biden and Blinken. So what do? Here's a perfect example. If you happen to open up the New York Times today, and I truly recommend that you don't, you could go to the opinion section and find an analysis that says this. Honest to God, I'm not making it up. Here's an analysis from the New York Times today. Why now? Hostage deal and a ceasefire months ago. President Trump put few, if any, guardrails on Israel's offensive, bucking international demands for a ceasefire. Then he changed course. Twisted, deranged, disgusting media. And that's why you have people so twisted, because they look at the New York Times. And as failing as they are, and Trump always loves to say this, the failing New York Times, nobody reads them anymore. That's true. But you've got enough people that read it, and this is a little hint on what I'm getting at here in a couple of minutes, enough older people that read it, more on that in a second, that still believe it. So they see this, and this is how this works because I see it personally in my own life. They see this and they go, oh, that's it. Okay, that makes all the sense in the world. This is how I can talk to my friends at the social club or the golf course or at the book club, and this is how I can justify this whole thing, right? It took them a couple of days to figure this whole out when they knew a peace deal was coming and hostages released. Well, and now they have their reason. Well, but it should have happened months ago. He didn't. Don't give him too much credit. This is how it happens. They have their outlets like the New York Times and MSNBC and CNN and all the other networks, and they justify it for them because they can't wrap their heads around the fact that the guy that they hate so much was responsible for this. That's how it works. But not the only ones. Did you happen to see Christine Amanpour? Oh, CNN's international foreign relations correspondent. Oh, she's the gold standard for understanding what's happening in the world. Oh, Christine Amanpour, we have to listen to her. She's amazing because she has an accent. Well, she said something amazing on air that was incredible, absolutely incredible, and actually had to issue an apology. It didn't come from her. It came from her bosses because it was just so outlandish and ridiculous. And let me summarize, and I'm not too far off as I summarize. She actually said, the hostages were treated very, very well, better than most Gazans were until they were killed. I'm not far off in that, but I'll play you the apology now. This is what aired last night.
Now, earlier live on air, I spoke about what a day of real joy this is for Israeli families whose loved ones are finally being returned from 2 years of horrific Hamas captivity, and for civilians in Gaza who finally had a reprieve from 2 years of brutal and deadly war. I noted that for the hostages who are finally home, it'll take a long time for them to recover mentally and physically. But I regret also saying that they might have been treated better than many Gazans because Hamas used these hostages as pawns and bargaining chips. But that was insensitive and it was wrong. From speaking to many...
Now, let me ask you something. Do you think this apology would have happened a couple of years ago? I don't think so at all. I think she just would have gone straight with it and gone with that lunacy. And God knows what else she's been saying for the past 2 years throughout this whole crisis, what she's been saying about the hostages. But here's the difference, and this is what should make you feel good about this. Pushback. Even the CNN bosses said, okay, nobody's buying that anymore. You know, the first thing is nobody's buying that this was due to Biden and Blinken's foreign policy. We tried that. That's not working. And the second thing is to try to actually imply that these hostages were treated well because they were bargaining chips. Yeah, that's not going to fly. So then they get on the phone. They're like, she's going to be pissed off about it, but tell Christine Amanpour that she's going to have to apologize. Yeah, we're going to have to. Because she doesn't believe that. She was only told that to keep her job. She was told to apologize and to retract that ridiculous, asinine statement to keep her job. That's how this whole thing works. Because the good news is everybody, most normal people, not the Trump deranged syndrome victims, but most normal people are pushing back against this. And it's clear as day to see. Because now, here's what else is happening. Now that they're freed, the Israeli hostages that are back telling tales of how it really was, I don't know if you want to ruin your day. Don't read too much into that, because imagine the worst possible thing that could have happened to you as a hostage. It's happening, and they're telling the truth about it. And then you have jackasses like her on air saying things like that. It's just insane. It just looks so silly. You've got a previous administration trying to take credit for a peace deal. Silly. And you've got her trying to say that they weren't treated too badly until they were killed. Ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. Let's get out of that for a second and go back home. We talked about the major cities. What should it surprise you at all that these two are teaming up? We also know domestically that this is happening now. Now they're trying to twist this all around. Obama had a big statement saying, in my administration, we didn't go after politically our rivals. It's exactly what you did. You're the one that weaponized the Department of Justice. But now that they're holding all of those crooks accountable, now they have to project and they have to try to cover for it. So that's what's happening. So now you've got, speaking of crooks, Big Tish James, the recently indicted Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, teaming up with, would this surprise you at all, Zoran Mamdani, the communist future mayor of New York City. Does it surprise you? Does it shock and awe you at all that the crook and the commie would team up for New York politics? No, it does not. But the response for them, to them, and her speaking at one of his rallies last night might surprise you a little bit. Just a little bit. Listen to the response. Now, this is tough to listen to, mainly because of her voice. I tried to turn it down. There's nothing else I can do, but here she is, who's now a martyr.
You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not.
She must be a lot of fun at parties, huh? She stands on solid rock. She's a martyr. And now listen, this is the first part of this takeaway. This is the first part to pay attention to. The people following her. And they broke, before that happened, when she first arrived there on stage or in front of that podium, whatever the hell it was, they started chanting Tish. Yeah. This is what people who are so incredibly lost that they're falling for that nonsense. That's the first demographic we're talking about. But the second one is really fascinating. The celebrity worship culture of older Americans. And this is relevant to the story, and you're going to think I'm mean by saying this, but it's true. You've noticed it, we've all noticed it, and it's all true. I think they have another No Kings rally coming up here in a couple of weeks. It might be this week. Honestly, I don't know, because it's like they're low energy, they're low turnout. And like I said, the paid protester business is falling on hard times because their funding's getting cut. And what are they going to protest now that you've got a potential for a actual free Palestine? But who's showing up for these things is relevant to the story and very important to understand the takeaway. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm no spring chicken myself. But what are they? You've noticed it, and you'll see it right here in this clip I'm about to play if you're and I'll describe it for you if you're an audio-only listener. They're older, predominantly female, they're white, and they're very, very liberal. This is the last bastion of people who are fooled by this nonsense, including celebrities talking about politics. Now, of all people, and I set this up in the introduction, it sounds like hyperbole, but I honestly believe this because of the timing. Think back of all the worst possible celebrity, Hollywood actors, musicians, authors, all of their worst possible takes about Trump. All of the worst, most ridiculous things they've said about him, or said about America, said about MAGA, said about elections. All of them. Any of them. Stephen King, Meathead Rob Reiner, Mark Ruffalo, Jane Fonda, any of the usual, just Sean Penn, the morons. Just stupid people who are celebrities. I submit to you that the worst take of all time, of all celebrities, because of the timing mostly, is Martin Sheen. I never saw it coming. I always thought he was kind of cool. But he was on, and I want to make sure I get this right. Let me make sure I get the facts straight so you can fact check me. Martin Sheen made some notably disparaging remarks about President Trump. That's fine. During a live taping of the MSNBC podcast, The Best People. Oh, that's rich. Hosted by Nicole Wallace. Here's another one. Here's the date for you. When was the live taping? October 13th, 2025. Now, that was just yesterday. What else happened yesterday? A live taping during the announcement of a peace deal in the Middle East and hostages released. This guy said this. Prove me that I'm wrong, that this is the worst celebrity take of all time.
So the big guy in the White House, if he would take some personal advice, you've got to realize, sir, that you are the biggest nothing in the world. And sir, you stop there. You stop listening to all these people around you, these sycophants who are encouraging you to be your non-human self. Get in touch with that humanity. Stop fussing with your hair.
Now, audio-only podcast listeners, I'll describe it for you because everybody else just saw it right there. What's the audience? Who would show up and who would just gobble this up, hook, line, and sinker, and just love it. Who is it? It's fair to say now. Now we can officially say it. We're not picking on anybody, not being ageist, not being racist, not being sexist. It's a fact. The last of the people completely fooled by idiotic celebrity takes are old, they're white, they're female, they're boomers, they're ex-hippies, and they're extreme lib. And they're the people that still think MSNBC is telling them the truth. That's what it is. And I'll say it again, because of the timing of it. Does a live taping, while it's happening, a live taping of MSNBC's podcast, and says that about President Trump, even his political enemies were starting to give him credit. Good God, even Jimmy Kimmel's monologue last night gave Trump a little bit of credit. But this absolute dope gets up there and he says, on the day hostages were released, and it looked like for the first time in all of our lives, there's actually a chance, a possibility, slim hope for peace in the Middle East. He says that about the guy that brokered the deal. But it's not about him. He's already gone. It's about the people who absolutely loved it. There's no talking to them, folks. They're gone. They're just gone. And now I think we know, for the most part. Next time, look at the next time. Think about that clip and who was in the audience. Old, white, mostly female libs. And then think about the next No Kings rally or whatever the hell else they did. And pay attention to who's in the crowd now. Because, guys, I think that's all they have left. I think that's it. So if you're worried about this kind of stuff and you're worried about backlash, I don't think I would take it as good news. I really would. I really honestly would. The paid protesters are on hiatus because, you know, the violent ones, because they don't know what to protest these days. They're lost. What if there's a free Palestine? Well, there goes that business. And the No Kings type rallies and those kinds of things are exactly what we saw cheering on Martin Sheen with a comment like that on October 13th. I'd take it as good news, so we'll see. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, midweek. Make it a wicked awesome one. I'm sure we're going to have some clips for you, some highlights to play from the Charlie Kirk posthumous Medal of Freedom Memorial and whatever else goes on. And hopefully it's some lighter good news to talk about. I hope so anyway. Although I would take all of this stuff as good news. It's hopeful. It's good, despite what they try to tell you. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you. On replay, on here on X and on YouTube and on Facebook and all that good stuff. And you Facebook viewers, I see you. I see you right now. More and more. Clicking on. Make sure you press follow as well. And audio podcast only. Make sure you press download and subscribe. Thank you so much. I'm out of material. You got to get into your day. Make it a wicked awesome Tuesday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.